Hi, I'm Teresa Jones from AARP Illinois. I want to welcome you to this live discussion on voting safely in the 2020 election. Today, we will be discussing on how the voting process works, deadlines for the upcoming election, and answer your questions to make sure that you have the information that you need to exercise your right to vote this November. AARP, a nonprofit, nonpartisan member organization, has been working to promote the health and well-being of Americans 50 plus for more than 60 years. AARP is fighting to protect 50 plus voters and to make your voice heard on the issues that matter, protecting Social Security, Medicare, lowering your prescription drug prices, and ensuring that you can vote safely from home or in person. The coronavirus may have put large parts of our lives on hold, but there's one event it won't delay: the 2020 election. About 230 million Americans will be eligible to vote in what many say is the most important election in recent history. AARP is demanding action from our politicians to ensure that 50 plus Americans, from working parents, family caregivers, to seniors in nursing homes, can vote safely. We have been working diligently to ensure that all Illinoisans can vote safely, and we're here today to tell you about your voting options. AARP Illinois was proud to support the vote by mail law to ensure this year's voting is a healthy and safe process. If you have questions on voting from home, voting early, or voting safely on the election day, you are in the right place. To join our live conversation, please post your question or your comment in the Facebook or YouTube comment feed. This will place your comment or your question in the queue for us to discuss live. So joining us today for this important discussion about voting safely is our first special guest, Pastor Marvin Hightower. Pastor Hightower is also the president of the NAACP in Peoria, Illinois. Pastor Hightower?
Good afternoon, everyone. Glad to be here to talk about this very important topic. Of course, the NAACP, that's what we do. That's one of the things we do year round, no matter if it's an election year or not an election year. We're registering people to vote. Because one of the reasons is John Lewis said this, the late great John Lewis said this: the vote is the most powerful nonviolent tool we can have. Voting levels the playing field. Voting allows us to express our opinion about what's going on in our country, in our state, and in our cities. It gives us an opportunity to let everyone know where we stand. And this year, as it has been stated, is one of the most important, if not the most important year to vote. And participation is a must. It must get up to well over 70-80% as it was back during Reconstruction, I believe, where back during when black people or black men specifically were able to vote. I think it was 80% participation rate, which is extremely high. Right now, the numbers are very low, 40 to 50% range at best. So we need to vote. We have to vote. We must vote. And if you need to vote by mail, go ahead and do that. But I am recommending people to vote early. If you don't trust the mail because of the national narrative, go vote early, which begins September 24th. Thank you.
Thank you, President Hightower, for joining us this afternoon. I would like to remind our friends that are joining us on live social media that you are watching AARP Illinois' live conversation on voting safely in the 2020 election with our special guest. We welcome your comments and your questions in the feed. Also joining us today is honored Alderwoman Doris Turner. Mrs. Turner represents the residents of Ward 3 in Springfield, Illinois. Alderman Turner?
Good afternoon, everyone. First, I want to thank Teresa Jones and AARP Illinois for providing this most important forum to discuss the opportunities to access the electoral process in the November 3rd election. On a personal note, I do have to say that Teresa has been a powerful voice and cheerleader for the empowerment of seniors throughout Illinois, and she should know that her efforts have not gone unnoticed. So thank you, Teresa, for all that you do every day. Um, the ele- electoral process and voting are the cornerstone to our democracy, and we simply cannot allow anything, including this international pandemic, to create a wedge to access to the ballot box. Understanding the impact of COVID-19 on all of our lives, there are a number of changes or provisions to the standard election process that will clear some of the natural and or perceived roadblocks. Most importantly, we want to ensure that everyone who wants to cast a ballot has the opportunity to do so either by mail or in person. And as Pastor Hightower said, uh, voting is the cornerstone of our democracy, and we just cannot let anything hamper everyone's ability to cast that ballot on November 3rd.
Thank you, Alderwoman Turner. AARP Illinois is also fortunate to have with us today Joe Lewis. He's the Deputy Director of Board of Elections Commissioner from the East St. Louis, Illinois area. Commissioner Lewis.
Good afternoon, everyone. I once again would like to say thank you, Ms. Teresa Jones and AARP for hosting such a well thought of and well timely panel today. I think the other states around the country may take your heed and do it as well. The election process, as so many have heard, is one of the most important that we've had in our recent history, mainly because of so many of the uncertainties, and easily the most is COVID-19. I am here along with the others on the panel to give a little bit of guidance and credence to some of the new laws that have come in place, and we are looking forward to discussing it for you. So we're ready to go.
Thank you, Commissioner Lewis.
Yes, ma'am.
Now, last but not least is our final honored guest, Justin Rose. Justin, he serves as the Director of Diversity and Inclusion at the University of Illinois at Springfield. Director Rose.
Thank you, thank you. And again, thank you to Teresa Jones and the AARP for, again, giving the opportunity to, focus in on a topic that is so important for every generation, particularly young people. And so just being an educator and in the educational arena, it's our business, it's our responsibility to provide opportunities that spur democracy and spur important conversations to make sure that we're going about the electoral process in a sound way, being good stewards on the day of election and before the day of election. So providing those opportunities to let individuals know how to safely vote and that their vote does matter. So I'm just grateful to be able to talk from the educational arena and just from a young people's perspective about our vote really does matter, because so often it is said that it doesn't, and we often believe it. So I'm here to dispel that myth, and I'm grateful to be on a panel with such distinguished individuals. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Rose. Well, now that everyone's met our friends, let's move on to some questions. So, due to the coronavirus, there have been changes regarding voting procedures for the November general election. Can you explain how we got here and provide some background on the steps to ensure that Illinoisans are able to vote safely during this unprecedented crisis? Now, any of you can answer this.
Don't everyone speak at once, huh? So I'll just begin. There are definitely changes in the way that this election is being put forward, that we can interact with our voters and participate in. Every the way that we put out our messaging, we are so used to that personal contact and having individuals come to our door and talk to us personally, and of course we can't do that now. So that all has changed, and we have to look for getting our information in different ways. So you're going to see a lot of people just doing what's called literature drops and just dropping things at your door. So please, when you see that information, pick it up, read it, and when you get things in the mail, because that's the way that you're going to have the best opportunity to be able to process information about candidates as well as issues. The other thing is that uh, there is the promotion of alternatives to in-person voting, because we know that a lot of people are very concerned about their health and coming in contact with other individuals in close proximity. I echo what Pastor Hightower said. I encourage everyone who can to vote in person and access the early voting opportunities in their community, where you and that begins on September 24th, which is just a week and a half away. So I always say that's when election day starts, September 24th. So if you have the opportunity to go in and take advantage of the early voting. The other opportunity is the vote by mail. And I know that there's been a lot of misinformation swirling around about the vote by mail process. People are now calling it vote by mail, but it's been around for decades under the name of absentee voting, and it's absolutely the same thing. And it's very secure, and there's no one should be afraid of requesting an vote by mail application. I know in Illinois, there was a change in the election law, and everyone who voted within a certain time period received a vote by mail application in the mail unsolicited, and they could then complete that, send it in to their election office, and they would receive a ballot. Now, the other thing that I want to say, because there has been a lot of confusion, because while the election authority sent out a vote by mail application, there were other interest groups that also sent out vote by mail applications. And a lot of people, especially seniors, were concerned because they were getting multiple applications in the mail. If you sent in multiple applications, that does not matter. You will only receive one ballot, because the election authority will make sure they have a process and protocol in place, and you will only receive one ballot that you can then complete and return and complete and return. Um, in a lot of communities, you can mail that back in, or you can drop it off at your election authority. But there's also drop boxes that have been placed around communities, where you can take that ballot, completed ballot, and return it to one of those drop boxes. But I don't think anyone should be concerned about taking advantage of any of those opportunities, because they're all very safe, and a good opportunity for you to uh, make sure that your ballot is cast, because that's your voice.
Very good points, Commissioner. One of the things that I would like to point out is that the election, um, general election omnibus was filed on 5/19 of 2020, which is the new Senate Bill 1863, which the governor signed into law. And basically, what that has done has made November 3rd a state holiday. So all of the schools, state and universities will be closed, and state government offices, except for those that are going to be used by the election authority, and in an event to help minimize some of the concerns about COVID-19. So that's a very universal piece that has been signed for the governor. And one of the things that it has helped citizens do is, as you stated earlier, Ms. Turner, that the bill from the governor has allowed everyone that has voted in one of the last three elections to receive applications for early vote by mail. Now, as throughout the state, some of the senior citizens have received multiple applications from different entities. And as you said correctly, if they have filled out one or many, they will only receive one application, one actual ballot in the mail, depending on where you're located in the entire state. And you will be able to uh, fill that out starting Thursday, the 24th of this month. I would like everyone to take advantage of everything that is comfortable for them. early voting actually starts on the 24th as well. So everyone could come into their election facilities and start casting their votes then. So we are looking forward to it. We think that we will have large number turnouts throughout the entire state that will take advantage of the new law, 1863.
This
One
is
thing I'll add to the discussion is just from a university standpoint, um, and following up on Alderman Turner and Commissioner Lewis' remarks, it's been a message in our on our campus and from our leadership that it's not a day off but a day on to go out and do service, and a lot of that messaging reach individuals on a personal note and allow for us to become polling judges so that we can participate and make sure that we have those authorities at the polling place on a day of, because as we know, most of our polling judges are individual citizens who are elderly and of age. So just joining the fight in that way, and making sure that we have uh, our young people civically minded and understanding the importance of being just a poll judge on the day of. Moreover, just in October, just for our district, having our campus be an early voting, polling place from October 22nd through October 30th. Very important. Again, we want to get in early and often, starting September 24th, but just providing a myriad of opportunities and also just really rolling up your sleeves and joining the fight. So I think those added pieces can help Illinoisans ensure themselves that their vote will be counted and that it matters.
Excellent point. Thank you so much. One of the things that we are continuously uh, asked about is knowing your rights if you've had a criminal record. And one of the things I like to point out is if you have been released from jail or on parole, you can vote. If you have been charged and not yet convicted, you can vote. Uh, if you have been incarcerated before but are not currently, you still can vote. If you're homeless and do not have a permanent living situation, if you have an address in which you're going to be a resident of, you can still vote. Those things are very important for our citizens, and we want to make sure that everyone exercises their right. And is anytime you're not sure if you are eligible to vote or if you have been registered, you can contact the State Board of Elections in Springfield or any state Illinois State Board of Elections in the municipality that you serve. Give them your address. They will be able to tell you if you're registered to vote. And if you're not, then you just need to have two forms of ID, one preferably being where you are a resident at, mail, or something like that. Occupancy permit, you can bring those in, get registered right on the spot, and be eligible to vote. I encourage every citizen to do that as soon as possible. And if you're sure or not sure, go ahead and double check before the early voting starts on this month, the 24th, next Thursday.
So I just want to piggyback on a couple of things that Commissioner Lewis said. One of them is extremely important when you talk about the privileges of individuals that may have a criminal background. So when he talked about that you can vote, that you're eligible to vote if you have been charged but not convicted of a crime. So that means that if you've been charged, even if you are being held in a facility, you can still request a vote by mail or absentee ballot and cast your vote. That's really an important piece that a lot of people don't understand and quite honestly don't take advantage of. The other one is when he talked about being registered to vote. Illinois is a same day registration state. So with the early voting that starts on September 24th, you can go in and register and vote right then, and you can do that all the way up to and on election day. So there's no reason. Illinois is a I think a very um, voter friendly state. There's no reason for anyone who's eligible to vote not to be able to vote in this election because, like I said, we have the same day registration. But I thank you very much for bringing up the piece regarding the people are or have been incarcerated being eligible to vote.
It's real simple. Know your rights for voting in case you have a criminal record.
Well, thank you for those comments. I really appreciate, especially hearing about some of the older citizens, some of our senior citizens getting a couple of different invitations to fill out their voting information. And I know, for instance, in our house, we received more than one. And I know the question came to me, are we supposed to fill out both of these, or does this mean that you're double vote? So I know that other people had these questions, so thank you for that. And especially the offender question, we thank you for that. So now we're going to go to President Hightower. So President Hightower, in 2019, Peoria was ranked number 7 as one of the worst cities for Black Americans to live. Well, this was according to the 24/7 Wall Street, which is a financial news service. So, Pastor Hightower, why do you think it's important for you as a leader and pastor in Peoria to educate members of your community to participate in the voting process and to ensure them that their vote counts and makes a difference?
Well, it's very important. 2019, it said we were number 7. In 2016, however, that same publication said that we were the worst. But and we took it with a grain of salt. But however, we had done a study 2 years prior to this being published, and then at the end of that study, it came at 2016 as well, which confirmed that we may not have been the worst, but we were in crisis mode at that point. And so we immediately, as an organization, definitely got out and still getting out people to get registered to vote. We do that with our senior citizens as well. We've been doing that, going to the senior citizens facilities to making sure that they have the information that they need, and then also addressing some of the younger generation who feel that their vote does not count. I heard it put this way: if you don't think your vote count, try to sleep with a mosquito in the room. Your vote counts just as that. You trying to sleep with a mosquito in the room, you will not be able to sleep because of that mosquito. So we try to reiterate over and over again, don't listen to the national politics, get educated. And we try to lead education that will lead to participation. And one thing our national president has said, he said, we have to go from protest to the polls, and from the polls to power, and then I'll add from power to policy. We have to address policy. So we try to reiterate how important it is to vote, to get people that are in your interest, and don't be so connected to people just because they say what they say. Research and figure out if they're in your interest. Then you want those people in those positions, but then also hold those people accountable. Don't just put them in place and not hold them accountable to what they have said. Keep their feet to the fire. And I believe one of the things that we did a few years ago, we got a certain person elected, but then we didn't follow up in the midterm. We didn't hold them accountable. So I think today we have to make sure not how important it is not only to get them elected, but to hold them accountable to what they have said, to speak to our interests. So we continually try to educate. We continually try to engage our young people, to hear them, not only to tell them, but to hear what they are saying as to their needs so that we can address them and also point them to the polls.
Thank you, Pastor Hightower. I almost said amen to that. Director Rose. Now, as director of the diversity and inclusion at University of Illinois Springfield, we realize that there's a large student body on this campus. So can you tell us some of the ways that you're reaching out to students to educate them on the importance of voting and safe voting practices?
Yes, thank you. So we're doing quite a bit. It seems week to week we have something new going on the campus to really galvanize and engage our student body in the importance of the vote, right, and just civic literacy. And And I think, having the virtual opportunities combined with some physical opportunities on ground have worked really well. We have virtual democracy walls and physical democracy walls, just again to capture the sentiment of how students feel about the voting process and just candidates and things. And it goes unmonitored for a reason, because I don't think you can muzzle freedom of speech really on the college campus at all. So we kind of use that as a starting point. But then just weekly, we have Tuesday and Thursday opportunities through our Volunteer and Civic Engagement Center, where departments are coordinating these opportunities, like my office, to be able to have platforms for students to come just for an hour or so, just to learn, what's the process, how to identify candidates, and just really educating and giving them opportunity to be trained up to be voter ambassadors on our campus and pushing their peers. So yes, it's starting with our departments to get the ball rolling, but we're really leaning on our lead RSOs, like our Black Student Union, who has an event actually tomorrow and Friday, which is the Black Vote Matters, and being able to again educate the campus community and some of our marginalized communities about some of the same things that you all talked about, rights, and then knowing if you're putting a candidate in who's representing your interest and things of that nature. We have our SGA, which is a powerful force on any college campus, but on our college campus, where they're again training up people. We have events all next week where they're doing virtual pep rallies to educate people and offer information about the voting process. So I think across the board, it's Herculean efforts from everyone, but really tapping into our students who lead their peers, and they're getting those messages out. And then I'll be remiss if I didn't talk specifically from our office space, which is the Diversity Center. We're lodged in Hispanic Heritage Month, and just even for something like our month of cultural awareness and representation, we are having conversations about voting. So we have an event called Me Vota, and giving the opportunity to pull panelists together to, from our different communities to talk about the vote in the HL community, and just being able to just again provide opportunity for students to be educated. I think Pastor Hightower said it, educate so they can participate. And I think we're doing a great job and using social media as well to market those things.
I want to commend you, Director Rose, in this time with COVID and so much uncertainty in schools and on campuses for you at the University of Illinois Springfield and throughout the state to be able to continue to promote so many engaging things for your students goes a long way. And not only do we like to see that, I think the entire state likes to see that, because when you really engage our young people, that tells the story that those that have been in the process are truly reaching those that we're trying to reach. We know that we reach the seniors because those among us that are on this call participate, but we always have a concern and a question of how well are we doing in reaching our young people. And at the university, that is a fantastic start. So I want to say thank you so much for what you're doing. And please get what you're doing out to the rest of the universities across the country, because they can take your lead, because some, I'm sure, are so uncertain of how they're going to do things, especially with COVID-19.
I also wanted to reiterate that UIS is a early voting site, and we were able to get 3 drop boxes in Springfield, and one of those will be at the UIS early voting site, so people can come in and early vote, or they can, if they have requested a vote by mail, they can also drop it off at that location. And I think that that's very important because it really should gin up the turnout in that community.
Well, thank you. Director Rosen, I know because I hear it coming from my basement quite often. I know that you guys are really working hard on that campus. My daughter attends UIS, and I hear part of those conversations. And thank you for what you all are doing.
Yes.
So, a reminder to all of those that are joining us, please post your question in our social media feed, and we will strive to address them live on air with our special guest. Now, Alderman Turner, this one's for you. Can you discuss the safety measures being undertaken for in-person voting during COVID-19 pandemic? And how are you emphasizing voter safety as election day approaches in your community of color?
Voter safety is extremely important, and it's a message that we really have to get out that there are so many great protocols in place for individuals to feel safe when they come in and vote because we don't want, unfortunately, a lot of the messaging that we hear is really akin to voter suppression because people are being, frightened to death about coming out to vote. There have been several things that are happening. One of them, and a lot of these things may seem minor, but when you pile them on top of each other, they really are addressing the situation. There are a number of polling location changes that are happening. And one of the reasons why that's important is because in most places, a polling location may include two or three different um, polling precincts that are conjugated within one polling location. So those are being moved so that there's a larger spaces that are accessed. And one of the great things that came out of the legislation that the governor signed that Commissioner Lewis referenced is that it is a holiday, so the schools are closed. So a lot of the schools will be able to be used for polling locations, which gives us an opportunity for a much larger space. The other thing that has happened is that the Illinois Department of Public Health has issued election day protocols that every election authority is responsible for ensuring are followed on election day. And those include physical distancing, making sure that everyone who is working as an election judge has a face covering over them, and there are also face coverings that will be available to voters who may come into the polling place that don't have a face covering on. So to be one of those signs, everyone who enters must have a mask on. So those masks will be available, as well as you know, uh, uh, I don't want to say the word disinfectant. Okay, come on, help me. You know what I'm talking about. Yeah, y'all know what I'm talking.
Sanitation.
Sanitize. Yeah, yeah. Hand sanitizer. Why
Yes,
could I
yes.
not think of that? Yeah, everyone will be provided with hand sanitizer, and there will also be a messaging for traffic flow, the way that the traffic will flow throughout the facility. And also keep in mind that just by the nature of the way that elections happen during the day, there are a lot of materials that different people will be touching throughout the day. So the voter book when you come in, the paper, the pens that you use, and the voter station where you actually put in your ballot, so that it's the tabulator. See, I'm getting the words right. The tabulator. Uh,
Oh, you're
all
doing great. You're doing great. You're
all
doing
of
great.
those will be cleaned and disinfected throughout the day. And one of the great things about it is that it's not just left to this kind of willy-nilly, whoever wants to do it will do it. The IDPH has set the protocols in place, but the election judges, all of the election judges that will be participating in this year's election had to go through training, and those IDPH protocols have been inserted into that training. So the judges have gone through the training and they understand what it is that they need to do. So, the shared objects will be cleaned. There will be a configuration for physical distancing, and a lot of polling places have been moved. The other thing is that in order to provide access for seniors, a number of polling places were located within, senior facilities or high rises and those kinds of things. And keeping in mind that seniors are, most subject to COVID infection, those polling places have been moved so that, they're no longer within those facilities. And I think that that's a significant protocol that keeps in mind that we do have this pandemic going on, and we want everybody to be safe and be able to cast their ballots. So I think that we're doing everything that we possibly can to ensure everyone's safety when they come to cast their ballot.
You highlighted on some fantastic points. I wanted to say also one of the things that the election commissioners around the state have put in place is that for seniors or others that would like to drop their ballots off at the election facilities, they can actually call and let them know that they are en route, and the election authority can come out to the curbside as well as on election day. You can have curbside voting. So we are doing a lot of things throughout the state of Illinois with protocols in place and with COVID-19 in place, social distancing, to truly make it a process that every citizen that is of age and eligible to vote in this election.
You know, the other thing I want to mention along those lines, if you have a vote by mail ballot and you need someone else to bring it into you, there is an affidavit that the person who's bringing that ballot in can sign, you know, verifying that they have permission to bring it in, and they can then take it in and leave it at the election authority or utilize one of those drop boxes.
Excellent information. Thank you. Thank you. Now, Commissioner Lewis, it's your turn. So, East St. Louis's population is estimated at 96%
Correct.
Black. Certain communities are particularly susceptible to suppression and, in some cases, targeted, like people of color and elderly, to name a few. So, I have a two-part question for you. You may have semi answered this before, but you can go a little bit more in depth with this. Can you tell our listeners the process and the key dates for vote by mail option and early voting for the November 2020 election? And part two is, as a voter who mails in their ballot, how do you make them feel confident that their vote is secure?
Well, I'll start with the most secure part of it, which is what you said. How is it that we can make voters feel that this process is secure? It's always been secure. Basically, when you receive ballots start going out on September 24th, and that is the law that is stated in the state of Illinois, and those ballots that will be mailed, once you receive them, I would suggest filling them out right away and sealing them up and signing and putting them in the mail. Once you put them in the mail, you can actually check and see if your ballot has been received. And you can call in. In some cases, you can go online, depending on what uh, location you're in the state of Illinois, and it will show that your ballot has been received. A lot of the precinct committeemen and those that are elected do that so that they can make sure that everyone in their precinct has been counted and their vote has been turned in. I think that is one of the best things that is available throughout the state. If some, as I said, some municipalities post those, and some you could actually call in, but they are available at every location in the state of Illinois as it relates to voting. Um, and to answer your question about when does early voting start, as we've said a couple times on this call, it actually starts on the 24th of September. And those are in-person voting. So every facility that's in the state of Illinois that's an election authority, you can actually go into those facilities on Thursday of this month and cast your vote. And in doing so, you know that you have already been voted and cast well before Election Day on November 3rd. And that's what we are suggesting, because we don't know how the 14 inches of snow may be on November 3rd. But we do know that if you cast your vote early in person, it's going to be counted as if you put it in the mail. But we're suggesting to everyone to take advantage of the protocols and the new law that has been in place for our voters and for COVID-19.
Thank you. Well, we'll take
You're more than welcome.
a couple minutes. I looks like I have a Facebook question. So this question is for anyone to answer. It's, how do you address and assist the homeless population for voting in this November election? Anyone?
That is a question that has come up recently, because I know I know that there has always been a homeless population, but we have seen that expanded with COVID and the way that it has economically impacted our communities. And so I do want to reiterate what Commissioner Lewis said earlier. Just because you don't have a house or a permanent location does not mean that you are not eligible to vote. You have somewhere where you receive your mail, or some, landing spot where you uh, have things stored, or some relationship, and you can use that address as your voting address, as long as you do have something that fits within the parameters of the documentation that's needed to be a registered voter. So I think that it becomes part of the educational process. That is one of the problems, or one of the areas that I think that we are lacking and falling up short, is that we have a hard time getting information out and educating, individuals on their rights about voting. And oftentimes people don't ask those questions until it's too late to act. So we run across someone on November 4th, and we say, "Did you vote?" "Well, no, I didn't think I could because." So, if we take the opportunity to provide that education, then we can better assist everyone in being able to access voting. So what we have done in Springfield is try and get that information into the hands of all of those outreach workers and organizations and entities that service, the homeless population, to make sure that they share it. But there's one other thing that I want to add. See, I think about things later. Uh, when we were talking about receiving your vote by mail ballot, um, once you receive it, a lot of people don't fill it out right away, or they're like, well, maybe I want to go in and vote. So if you do decide that after you have received your vote by mail ballot, that you want to go in and vote, you can still do that. You can still walk in and vote. However, you must take the ballot that you received in the mail, you must take that in with you and relinquish it to the election judge, so that they can, so that there's no concern about you voting twice. But just make sure that you take that ballot in and return it. Otherwise, you'll still be able to vote, but you'll receive a provisional ballot. And we don't want anybody to vote on that provisional ballot, because then there's a whole nother process that you have to go through to make sure that your vote gets counted. So, if you're going to vote by mail, when you get it, make sure that you complete it and get it in as soon as possible. But if you think that you might want to go in, don't misplace it. Don't put it on top of your refrigerator and then pile a bunch of other stuff on top of it and can't find it, because you will need to take it into your polling place.
And I do want to reiterate that you can't vote twice. You got to cast one vote. I just want to make that plain and clear.
That is so true. You can only vote once. In spite of what you may have heard on television.
Well, that was good. Thank you for that,
Alderman
Alderman
Turner.
Turner.
You guys see my puppy's trying to kill me.
Yeah. So it looks like we've got about 2-3 more minutes. So one other person had asked, and we'll answer this quickly, and then we'll do our closing. And I think we've already hit this, so this is probably a yes or no, most likely a yes. But someone had asked, does my voice really matter in this election to issues like health and financial issues?
Well, of course. One of the things you have to remember when you go in to vote, you're voting for more than one thing or one person. You're voting for issues of health care. You're voting for issues of financial considerations. And I often say, start from the bottom up. Don't just focus on the top of the ballot. Work from the bottom of the ballot all the way up, because your vote is more than just for a president. It's for healthcare. It's for the economy. It's for everything else that you can imagine. So take it seriously. And that's why I say get educated. Don't just go blindly casting a vote. find out
Yes.
who's speaking to
So
your
I'd like to
interests.
thank all of our special guest speakers, and I'd like to thank all of you for joining us today and participating in this important discussion. Throughout the 2020 election, AARP's focus will remain on protecting 50-plus voters and ensuring that they can vote safely from home or in person. Now, I apologize if we were not able to answer all your questions, but you can also find valuable information about the upcoming election at aarp.org/election 2020. That is aarp.org/election 2020. For Illinois specific voting information, please visit our AARP Illinois 2020 voting election guide at states.aarp.org/Illinois/elections-voting-guide. So again, AARP is a nonprofit, nonpartisan member organization that has been working to promote the health and well-being of older Americans for more than 60 years. In the face of the coronavirus pandemic, AARP is providing information and resources to help older people and those caring for them protect from the virus and prevent it from spreading to others. If you need additional resources regarding voting from home, please visit us at www.states.aarp.org/Illinois. There you will find the latest updates on the coronavirus, as well as information tailored for older adults and family caregivers. Now, we hope that today's event was helpful to everyone. We appreciate everyone's time and participation. You guys, thank you so very much for joining in on this call. So I thank you, and everyone have a great day, and this concludes our event.